Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the Kreeger cast. I'm your host, Patrick Kreeger, and I'm joined, once again, by Darrell and Stephanie.
Not by choice.
He got top billing this time. I see how it is.
I'm going to alternate.
I'm kidding. It's fine.
So, today, dear listener, we are going to regale you with the spookiest and spoopiest stories we have.
This is the Halloween special?
Well, I mean, yeah.
One of the Halloween
season special.
Halloween season special.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're hoping to do several Halloween-themed things throughout the season, because 'tis the season of the spooks.
Indeed.
So, Darrell, you are going to be starting us off today. You and I, and Stephanie too, right? We work at a house that's over 100 years old. That's been the spooky house on the hill for our community.
You know, we take care of this Victorian mansion, and it has given me a couple scary stories over the course of more than 20 years. And, we've talked about the scariest one before, which actually occurred with you. And just to recap, it was the foggiest night I've ever experienced up there. Like, you could not see more than 10 feet in front of you. Like, just the fog rolled in, which I assume has to do with changing temperature and moisture and the wood creaking and everything. But we were doing something at 2 a.m. I think we were filming some other project. Or
FaceTiming Freddy Fazbear at 3 a.m.
Or shining spoons or something, as we do. And we were locking up. And as we were just out of there, the loudest crash we've ever heard in there happened. And it wasn't just someone like dropping a box. It sounded like someone, tipped over a bureau.
Yeah.
And it was pretty scary, very eerie, quite horrible. We locked up, walked away, and then we forgot something.
So we had to go back into the den of darkness.
We had to go back in, and it was horrible. And so we went back in, and nothing had crashed. Nothing was amiss.
Nothing fell off the walls. There were no doors opened or closed that shouldn't have been.
Nope. And it wasn't even like a door closing kind of sound. And then everything was fine. We button it back up, and then I go to I pull the door closed, and then, big scary moment of the night was I looked into the glass. There was the second layer of glass, and saw, big scary figure, which was Patrick behind me. But it looked, just like there was someone inside the house. So that was the last jump scare of the night, which was the worst jump scare of the night. And that still has me reeling. But I've had other spooky times there.
Yeah.
I've had it where I've been walking through and it sounds like the dishes are being set. Click, like a methodical click of china.
Oh, that's spooky.
And we've of course had, and you've been there a couple times, I think, the music box playing. And you have a theory with the music box.
Yeah, the music box has the tendency of playing itself. And this is a rather repeatable event. I've heard at least 5 or 6 stories involving the music box, and I've been present for at least 2 of them. The thing that I've noticed, at least from my personal experiences, that all have to deal with the music box, is that the music box was played earlier that day. And so I think it's a spring changing temperature causing the music box to give off that little bit of runtime.
Yeah. So when earlier in the day you show someone, hey, this thing plays on its own, it in turn will then create another story for later in the day. Yep.
How long does it play for?
Not very long.
Yeah.
The longest I've ever heard it go is like 3 or 4 seconds. It's just enough to get notes out.
Yeah.
It's not
enough to scare you.
Yeah, because you're in a dark house where everything is completely silent, and then slow, off-tune, off-rhythm music starts playing from the ether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Yeah. Do you have any other ones that you remember from there?
From the Newland house. Well, so it's not exactly paranormal, but in terms of frightening, yeah. There's the clothing that's set up all throughout the house that is eerie.
That's just how we have it.
That actually looks like the woman in black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she actually does look like the woman in black. But, to display some of the historical clothes.
Yeah.
Have them on mannequins, but they...
With the lights off.
Yeah.
Especially,
lights off. During the haunted tours where I make you walk around upstairs. Alone.
In the darkness.
In the dark. Don't turn the lights on, because then people can see from outside.
No,
ruins the effect.
So, yeah. This little Victorian house we work in.
And it's so quintessentially spooky, too. Like, it's all the haunted house cartoons and stuff that they put on plates. Like, it's on a hill. It's a Queen Anne. It has its little tower. Like, it looks exactly like a haunted house, except it's white. So you really have to kind of see it at night for it to be spooky.
Yeah. But when you're in it at night, when you're doing maintenance work on it and stuff like that, it's kind of a terrifying place to be.
Yeah. I
wouldn't want to be there alone, and I hate shutting off the lights.
Well, in the, I remember when we were doing the haunted tours, and I was the jump scare at the end, for a couple of them, but we were trying out different places for me to jump out of. And there's this walk-in closet in the master bedroom that leads into the guest bedroom. And it's like a little tiny hallway closet. And I remember having to sit in there and close the door, and it's just pitch black, and you can smell kind of like all the old, just the way old houses smell. And it's a lonely feeling. But, you have any other house stories?
No, not really. I'm the scariest thing there.
Snap.
I'm the one that's usually haunting.
That's true.
Yeah.
But no, the night with Patrick was the scariest time. That is the legitimately scariest time. I still have a very eerie, very unsettled feeling from that night. And I'm not one to believe in the paranormal, but I still have that horrible feeling from that night.
Yeah, we recounted the story earlier in another podcast, and not going to lie, listeners, it set me off. It was a little uneasy for a few minutes afterwards.
Yeah, the memory of that, it's very vivid to me still. And the big drop. And then the worst part was it didn't even happen to you.
Yeah.
It was
Patrick's face.
Yep.
The most horrifying thing.
Most horrifying thing there is.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I know that neither of you believe in the paranormal, and I think even if you do believe in the paranormal, your first instinct is to try to kind of explain that away. I don't know what sort of shifting of beams, though, could make a sound that rattled an entire house, regardless of how old the house is.
This sounded so distinctly, like a wooden box full of trinkets, metal things, spoons, what have you.
Did you hear something clatter at the same time? Like, did it
No.
sound...
Just one definitive
boom.
And it was literally like I'm trying to describe a wooden box, like I would say, 2 feet across by a foot, a big thing, full of little items that each, had their own independent rattling, thrown to the ground. Not dropped, thrown. Not, like vehemently thrown against the ground, but with heft.
Mm-hmm.
It was the weirdest thing.
I don't know, man. I don't know if a house can make that noise by itself.
not without leaving some sort of evidence. The only thing is maybe something in the attic, but it distinctly sounded like it came from the hallway.
I mean, but don't you have a cabinet that doesn't close when it's particularly humid or particularly dry?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
doesn't
And
make
this
a noise.
was such a profound humidity change with that fog. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen it that foggy. Like, actually not being able to see 10 feet in front of you walking.
Yeah, I have seen it that foggy in our town before, but not at that site. And that's actually a story I'll talk about later in this podcast. It was another foggy night.
It's those foggy nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, when your vision is limited.
Yeah, it's all about not knowing what's there.
Well, there's more to it than just that. I think that that's the big component, totally, of the unknown. But there's this concept in video games that the easiest way to make a video game scary is to make your character powerless or by removing power. So the easiest way to diffuse a scary video game is to give your character a gun, because then they have control over the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have to give them a gun for whatever reason, gameplay or whatever, make sure that they know they only have a limited number of bullets, so they can't necessarily use it against every bad guy that comes across them.
Mm-hmm.
This was used really successfully in like the PlayStation era by things like Silent Hill that used fog, because the graphics processing software or hardware wasn't quite up to snuff. So you could only ever see, a few feet in front of you, and you didn't have the ability to fight back. You couldn't run. And so having a real life debuff, for lack of a better term, or hindrance with the fog really does make it nerve-wracking, because you have less time to react to something that may actually be out there.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the movie Silent Hill?
I haven't seen it.
They made like 5 of them.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of them. Mm-hmm. And I love that was a callback too.
But I mean, nerve-wracking driving in the fog too.
Oh yeah.
Especially because your Charger's fog lights were not always perfect at cutting through the fog.
No, not at all. So, dear listener, I used to take late night walks with my friends in the park of our town. We would walk along the paths and just enjoy the night air. There was one night, a dark and foggy night, where I went with 2 of my friends to the park. One of whom was a young woman who dressed in flip-flops, short shorts, and a tank top. And the other was a young man who stood taller than me, but wore a simulation of a World War II German uniform, complete with gas mask, for this nighttime foggy stroll.
Really?
Yeah. How have you not heard this story? It's one of my favorite stories.
Okay.
Anyway, so the 3 of us were wandering through the park this late night, at which point the young girl gets tired. And by young, I mean she was like 19.
This is the first trope in the horror movie. She's always the first to go.
So she gets, we're at the point where we can only see maybe 18 feet or so in front of us. She gets tired, and she sees a bench up ahead. So she decides to go and sit on it. At which point, she screams and runs off into the night. I cannot see at the moment what is on this bench, but there is, in fact, a large white lump on this bench. I start taking off after the girl to make sure she doesn't get lost in the park in the middle of the night, while trying to maintain eye contact with my friend, who is nearsighted and thus through the gas mask could not see very well because he had to not wear glasses. And so I notice my friend, who stands, about 6.5 feet tall, bending over and looking at the lump on the bench.
Through the gas mask.
Through the gas mask. It turned out it was a homeless man covered in toilet paper. who woke up at that moment.
Okay.
So
And saw the gas mask, which is way scarier than anything.
oh yeah.
He must have thought he'd eaten something funny that night.
So explain. He was like he covered himself in toilet paper?
Yeah, because it was a cold night, so he stole toilet paper from the restrooms in the park and covered himself in it to sleep on the thing. But so that's what the girl saw and ran off with, and the guy couldn't see what was causing her to scream, so he was curious, and woke up the homeless man to seeing a man in German uniform with a gas mask.
Oh boy,
that's so scary.
Yeah,
for him.
So
so scary for him.
That's my.
So not only did he get woken up, now he's gonna get interrogated by the Gestapo.
So that's my favorite story that I have from that era in my life, because it starts off with like, okay, why is he describing what they're wearing? That's weird that guy's wearing, German uniform. Why is he wearing a gas mask? And then ends with scaring a homeless man.
That's so sad.
It is. But
well, that's not the spookiest.
No, but it's in the theme, and it's one of my favorite stories.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
That was the coolest thing that came out of my night walks in the park.
Yeah.
The only other encounters were, well, frankly, with teenagers who didn't want to be encountered, or the police.
Okay.
And, the cops were in the park, making sure people weren't doing drugs. For what good that was.
Yeah.
So.
Was that your other Foggy Night story?
No, it's just, I mean, that this was the other Foggy Night story.
Yeah.
But it's just, it was funny to me that the cops were actively patrolling the park and didn't care if you were in the park. They just cared if you were doing drugs. So when you told them you weren't, they were cool with you.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really pleasant, because it gave you a great, nice, safe place to walk at night.
Yeah.
I don't think you could anymore. So anyway. Yeah, imagine waking up to that. You're a poor homeless man, just trying to get some sleep. It's a cold, cold, bitter night, and the Gestapo comes for you.
I know.
Gestapo comes for you.
That's insane.
Oh my gosh.
So, Stephanie, you seemed excited about this podcast where we tell spooky stories.
Yeah, I was looking forward to hearing some spooky stories.
Oh, I thought you were looking forward to telling some.
Okay, I know a lot of people come to me and tell me their spooky stories. And I think possibly in this horrible twist of dramatic irony, I can't think off the top of my head of any time that something truly unsettling has happened to me personally.
That's so sad.
I know,
because people pour their hearts out to you with
their spookiest stories, and it's so sad to me because I have these two here, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't believe in the paranormal, blah 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 blah. I hook, line, and sinker. I think it's all real. Like,
and I've even seen ball lightning.
Whatever, Patrick.
Cool Blitz.
And St. Elmo's fire, yeah, out in your Sea Scout days.
Yeah. Although I will say, I do. Darrell's grandmother and I both have seen shadow people.
Oh.
But it's not. I don't know. I almost think of it. And while I believe in the paranormal, I'm skeptical to a sensible degree. Like I think there are things that are just tricks of the light. But I don't think that's really spooky. I think it's just there.
Shadow people?
Shadow people.
That would scare the hell out of me if I saw that.
My grandmother used to always say that the shadow people were dancing at the top of the stairs.
Oh, that's creepy, man.
Yeah, and her sister does too.
Right.
And I think my grandmother's grandmother used to talk about the shadow people.
Yeah.
But explain your...
Okay, so there's like a whole lore around shadow people, though, and a lot of people who experience sleep paralysis talk about...
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Patrick? Talk about the shadow people. I've experienced almost... When I'm falling asleep, I've experienced sleep paralysis twice. But I didn't see any shadow people. But I was able to drag myself out of it, which probably isn't true sleep paralysis, but there you go. No, I mean, I will see figures that are very obviously human shaped, in the shadows. I don't experience it super frequently. I know when I go home to Ireland a lot of the older women will talk about seeing shadow people sitting on the bed, standing at the foot of the bed and watching them.
It's just not okay, man.
Stuff like that. I've never seen, I don't want to say I've never seen one up close. I have seen them at the top of Darrell's stairs, which I don't know. I almost think that, but like on the landing, the landing between the two sets of stairs. I don't know.
This is news to me.
No, I've told you that because remember I told you when you were like, "Oh yeah, Mom used to say that she saw."
Yeah.
No, this is not okay.
Yeah, no, but they don't do anything. They spin and then they disappear. But I've never experienced something. But I can tell lots of friends' spooky stories. So, for example, I have a friend who went to the same Victorian finishing school as me in Tennessee, and her sister went for the last couple of years, and so while her sister was going, they kind of did the obligatory Carter and Lotes plantation or house tours. And she said the first time she was at Carton Plantation, she passed out in the kitchen. And she just kind of thought like, oh, it's dehydration or whatever. The second time she went, they kind of did the same tours. And she said she felt very, very cold, but like there was someone blowing ice, like icy air on the back of her neck. So she stepped out of the tour. And she had been taking pictures just in the house. She'd been taking pictures in the house, and she just kind of slipped out into the garden because she was like freezing. And her brother came out after her to make sure that she was okay, and she was looking through the photos, and all the photos had like this red smear across them. Not like blood, but like a red static, like the phone had broken.
Yeah.
Like this red static smear across all the photos. And she was like, what the heck? Like, my phone is... And then her phone just shut off. It was at full battery, like 90, whatever. Just the phone shut off. And then when the phone turned back on, all those photos were just gone. That's... I suppose you could say that could be explained by a technical glitch.
Yeah.
But, there are lots of spooky stories that people tell me. I've never experienced anything obviously paranormal, I guess. Apart from the shadow people.
That's pretty obvious, though.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't know. I don't know what the official lore of the shadow people is. But lots of people see them.
It's like an Irish thing too.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to talk about the shadow people, and then she used to talk about her grandmother's story, her encounter with the banshees, what she thought was banshees, and banshees are the spirit in Ireland, and my grandmother's grandmother was from Ireland.
For those who don't know, what is the banshee?
Well, you tell. You're the banshee expert.
Oh well, you can tell. You know what the banshee is. It's your story. No, okay. So just banshees are. It's just Irish for female fairy, banshee. Yeah,
I didn't know this.
Yeah, people now spell it Banshee. In Irish, it's Beansidhe.
I know that from Duolingo on ban,
yes.
On fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically the idea of a banshee is that if you hear one screaming, it's a portention of someone's death. Someone's going to die if you hear the banshee screaming. Some people say if you hear the banshee screaming, you're going to die. But typically, if you actually go into the country and ask people, it's someone's going to die. Because you will have reports of more than one person hearing it.
Yeah.
So.
And there's different things with what they look like. Like sometimes they're just floating white or floating black kind of figures.
Mm-hmm. And
so my grandmother's grandmother was, at her kitchen window. No, actually, I think they were upstairs in their bedroom window, and they looked out into the night, into this very black night in Massachusetts, and saw these white things floating around. These white dots floating all around the yard, all around the house. And she starts wailing, like screaming bloody murder, that the banshees are here, the banshees are coming for her. It's just absolutely terrified. And so my grandmother's grandfather goes out there, and it's the cows.
What?
Cows had escaped from the house next door, from the farm next door. There was a turkey farm, and the cows from the next farm over had escaped and were wandering around, and they were the black and white cows. And so the white spots were floating.
Yeah.
As they move around. Hilarious.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's my encounter with the banshees in my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an encounter with Kugelblitz.
Kugelblitz.
Yeah, ball lightning.
Okay.
So, dear listener, you'll often hear people refute alien sightings with ball lightning, or ghost sightings with ball lightning. I can attest to the fact that ball lightning is like the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, picture, if you will, about a 20-foot wide or in circumference ball, an amorphous blob-shaped ball that glowed this iridescent green and blue color, that was doing flips and tricks and swirls through a field in the middle of the night. It was the closest thing I've ever gone to not understanding what was happening. I've literally never seen anything like it. It was like a CGI alien invasion sort of thing, like a death ray or a ghost, because you could see through it. And it was focused at this power line. It was flying around it, doing loops and tricks, and it was maintaining its shape and never touching anything. And it was incredibly eerie, and I have to say hundreds of people saw this thing because it brought traffic on the 5 to a dead standstill as people got out of their cars to watch this thing.
Wow.
It was...
Where was this?
Somewhere in Central California along the 5. It was truly amazing. The closest thing, like, if you wanted a good example of what it was the Northern Lights. It was the exact color.
Miniature.
Yeah. It was just, about 20 feet wide and literally flying around a field. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
And you've seen some pretty weird things while driving.
Yes, but that is the weirdest. And I think I get it when people are like, oh yeah, that's the explanation for aliens. If I only got a glimpse of this thing, I would be saying that yes, aliens, without a doubt.
And there's like a bunch of different hypotheses for ball lightning and what exactly ball lightning is.
Yeah, but ball lightning is a fairly commonish occurrence. I've never met anyone who's seen it. But I've met plenty of people that when I describe this phenomenon to them, they go, yeah, that's ball lightning. Like this is a known thing that happens. And I got to watch it for like 10 minutes.
Weird.
So like I got a really good look at it and knew that it was a plasma of some sort in the air. But if you caught a glimpse of that, like if it wasn't able to maintain its shape, man, that's a ghost. That's a UFO. That's something like that. Just a sudden ball of plasma.
Yeah.
So.
That's crazy.
Patrick's a witch.
That's the explanation.
I saw Goody Kreeger with the devil.
Yes.
So, do you have any more of other stories to share?
I have lots of spooky stories that other people have told me.
Yeah, that's
so okay,
fine.
so first of all, your thing about Central California, I feel I frequently drive up to Northern California through the Central Valley, and it's usually at night.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but I think there's something about Central California that's a little bit eerie.
It's populated but open. It's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But maybe it's just the large expanse of forest up there.
Yeah.
You know, like the same thing with Washington, I'm sure. I've never been to Washington, but I'm sure that the same rule applies when you're out there in the middle of the night and it's just trees and the hoo-hoo, obviously.
I'm gonna talk about Washington in a bit.
Yeah.
But
but so I have a story from one of my old professors in college, and we were talking about, you know, as you do in college, the existence of good and evil and the possible personifications of such ideas. And he was saying that he had a friend who was driving around, I want to say San Jose, and they went up into whatever hills or mountains or whatever there are there, up into the forest. They were hiking around, but they had to drive to wherever they were hiking to. And they were driving up, and it was, I don't know if it was early in the morning or whatever the deal was, but it was foggy. There's always fog. If there's ever fog, just don't go outside. Unless you hear a loud bang, and then I guess do go outside. But, so they're driving around up in these mountains, and it's super foggy, and they see this thing in the middle of the road, like a tall-ish thing, and they stop. And it's this girl in this, like, white nightgown with just jet black hair. Just, like, and I'm like, okay, that's someone dressed up as Samara trying to freak people out on the road, right? And so that's what they thought. But she just kind of kept standing there staring at them, and they're like, all right, this might be someone who is not quite of sound mind.
Yeah.
So they called the park ranger, and they decided to, you know, go back down the hill to talk to the park ranger. Took the park ranger back up, and she was gone. So, you know, never heard what came of that one. Hopefully it wasn't someone who needed mental assistance. Yeah. But she said, she's like, then we're like, okay, well, that was kind of a rattling experience. So she said they reached where they were going to hike, you know, around right as the fog started burning off, and it was a beautiful day and blah, 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 blah. And she said, and they were hiking, and they saw this thing on this rock, this jet black little, she said it looked just like a person, but not. Like in miniature, like the size that you would see. She said it was the size of a gargoyle.
Okay. That's
right?
Not a descriptive size.
Yeah, okay, well, like, you know, like a little, I don't know,
like
maybe
a garden
a foot tall.
Okay.
Yeah, like one of those little, yeah. And she's like, and it looked human, but not, if that makes sense. Like when we talk about like the uncanny valley, like if something looks too human, it freaks us out. And she was saying, you know, from a theological standpoint, because this woman was a theologian, or the woman who was telling my professor, and she said, you know, at the time we looked at it, and it looked at us, and we knew that we had to get out of there right away. And she said, I don't know what possessed me, like, you know, most people would be like, oh, like, it's a small animal, like, let's go see what it is. She's like, no, I looked at it, and I was like, we need to get out of here right now.
Yep.
And her explanation for it is, you know, if you believe in God or whatever you believe in, this woman is obviously a Protestant Christian theologian, and her explanation of it I thought was really interesting, if you believe in God. And her thing was that in an attempt to scare or trick or whatever, you however you believe that demons or whatever they are try to come into people's lives, she said, there are beings that are evil that try to take on human form, but because they can never quite come back into that thing that is God's grace and love, they can't ever quite achieve humanness.
Yeah.
So, she says, you'll hear people talking about, oh, I was walking in the woods and this guy walked by me, but something didn't seem right about his face. Or, different things that people say. And not even necessarily, I mean, you can look at someone, maybe they have physical deformities, but they're definitely human.
Yeah.
But she says something about their ability to become human just doesn't quite make the mark. And, obviously to varying degrees. Sometimes it's something little, sometimes, and she says, and that's part of why, we do have the uncanny valley. Okay, this thing's trying too hard to be human. And so I thought that was a really interesting sort of theological view of why we get creeped out by things that are too much like us, but not quite there.
Ooh, that's a creepy thing.
You have a really good one with finding things in the forest, though.
I was gonna say the coming across the
in your car. Yeah, if you're ready to talk about that one,
there's multiple that I'm thinking of, but there's a particular time when I'm trying to think if it's the story you're thinking about, because your story reminded me of this.
Mm-hmm.
I was out driving in the middle of the night with a couple of my friends out over by Cook's Corner, forested area near us.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in 2010, years before the crazy clown thing. There was a man in a clown outfit with a machete.
Oh, good.
Along the hiking path.
Nice.
Standing there.
And there were no lights.
Yeah. There was nothing around him. He was just there.
Was he standing?
Woods.
He
was standing.
Was just actively looking to scare people on the road, or?
So, if I can remember this story correctly, the way it happened was we parked and we were going to go walking for a little bit. And we got not 15 feet down the hiking trail and we saw him. And my friend was like, oh, we could just walk by him. It's okay.
Can we, though?
And, oh, man.
Did you? Or did you turn around?
I can't remember. I actually can't remember.
I can't remember.
I hope you would not walk by
a man
with a
machete.
killer man.
Yeah.
Whatever about a guy dressed up as a clown, if you want to, awkwardly, ah, and, walk by him. But, I feel like if someone has a weapon, even if they're dressed as not a clown.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't walk by that person.
Yeah.
You're still here, so probably you didn't.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what happened. I'm thinking we just left. That was spooky. I'm trying to think of specifically what you were thinking about. I'm thinking it was that.
It.
Yeah. I've seen...
Though you explained that completely different before.
Yeah.
As you were driving in there were a couple of times where you were driving in a completely unpopulated area.
Well, this was.
Someone.
So the ones I'm thinking of right now off the top of my head are, I was out in the middle of nowhere and I saw people coming from the woods with pickaxes.
How many people?
3 to 5. Just coming out of the woods with pickaxes.
What did they look like?
Teenagers.
Just normal people, not dead-eyed.
No.
Okay.
But it was the middle of the night.
Right.
With pickaxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen a teacup on a saucer just set up in the middle of the road.
Portrait.
I just thought that was strange.
The deer.
I saw a cloud of mist that formed into a deer, and that was frightening. We refer to it as ghost deer. But on the subject of clouds that form themselves into shapes, my friend Matt and I were driving around Black Star Canyon around midnight.
Where is Black Star Canyon? Washington?
No, it's actually out by Lake Irvine.
Oh.
apparently a Native American massacre happened there. It's full of spooky, scary ghost stories. And I have this on film, so maybe I could even post it somewhere and let you guys know where it is. But I drove through a column of fog that was shaped just like a man. Out in the middle of the road, there was no fog, just a single column shaped like a man. And I said to my friend that I was
We
with...
have a name for columns of fog shaped like people, Kreeger.
What?
Ghosts.
And so I said to my friend, did you see that? And he said, see what? So I drove back through the thing. You know, I put my car in reverse and drove back through the thing.
Ran over the guy a couple of times for good measure.
And it was gone. But then it started reforming. And that's when I got the footage.
Wow.
Was this river of fog, maybe about 10 feet long, you know, almost the width of the road, forming into a man shape. Just kind of in the middle of the road.
Fog doesn't do that, Kreeger.
There was no fog anywhere
doesn't do
else.
that.
And so I drove through it again. For good measure.
Oh my gosh.
So that happened. So I'll tell a story now of when I was in legitimate danger.
Okay.
A lot of your stories end with that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was followed by wolves today.
So I might have told this story on the podcast before, but 'tis the season, 'tis the right time. I was in my cabin in the woods, miles from the nearest help.
His literal cabin in the woods.
Literal cabin in the woods. And
not just miles from help, like actual multiple hours from anyone.
yeah, like legitimately the police were like, when we turn the lights on, it's an hour to you. So it's about 2 a.m, getting ready for bed, and there's this massive thud on the side of the house. I mean, this was, and now actually even thinking back on it, it was fleshy sounding. Like it was almost a wet thud. And I thought to myself, okay, someone's breaking in. Let's get ready for this. Let's do this thing. But then there was no follow-up. Now, mind you, dear listener, I was on the phone at the time with my dear friend Darrell. Some of you may know him.
So many of our phone conversations end with that, with like, hang on, I might die. Let me put you down for a second. I might be in a gun battle.
Yeah. So I have Darrell on my landline. He's hooked up to my headset, got the phone on my belt, got my shotgun, and I'm ready to do this thing.
Yep.
A couple minutes go by, there's no additional sounds. So I realize, if I'm going to get any sleep tonight, I need to know that was a branch that hit my house. You know, branch with lots of fuzzy pine needles would make a kind of soft, meat-like thud.
Sure.
On the side of the
thud.
on the side of the house.
Okay, Patrick.
I really can't emphasize how loud this was. Like this was rattlesome.
The same ghost that was in the Newland house.
Same ghost that was in the Newland house, maybe.
So you.
There's
been infested.
So there's only 3 sides of my house that are lit.
Okay. So
I checked the first side. There was no one there. No cars. So I'm like, okay, it's not a person I'm dealing with. It's at least that. It's probably only wolves. Or maybe the cougar that was in the area. Check the next side. No sound. No nothing. So I decided to check the area that's pitch black. That was between the car and the house.
Of course you did.
And I walk into it, and this gray mass lunges for my neck. At which point, I feel impressed. I kept my wits about me and realized I shouldn't just shoot a shotgun randomly off into the air. and just
I would have been 100% team shotgun at this point. I'd have been like, thanks.
Well, if I had the shotgun pointed in a reasonable direction, I would have, but it was up, in a way.
Oh, yeah.
So it was not going to do anything.
That's why you point your gun at the ground, Kreeger.
How was I should have known whatever would attack me from the ground. And so there I am thinking I'm going to die as this thing lunges at my neck. And I hit it. And I hit it again. And on the second hit, it goes flying. Like, I hit it so hard that this thing goes, like, maybe 10 feet away. Now, mind you, the whole time I'm screaming on the phone with Darrell.
Oh my God.
Just, ah! And then this turkey runs off into the woods. This very confused turkey. And so I walk back inside and say, okay, that went well.
Oh my God.
like very nonchalantly. Yeah. And I think you said, what was with the caveman scream? Something of that nature.
Yeah.
Oh.
A big meaty turkey.
Yeah, this was like a good 20-pounder.
Yeah. Hadn't been found by the wolves yet. Luckily, nor was I.
What time of year was this?
This was like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, cool. I'd have brought that in for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
Yeah, this was legitimate.
Turkeys are fast.
Turkeys are fast. Turkeys are vicious. Turkeys can kill.
It went for your throat.
Turkeys. I know it's true. I just it was great delivery. What about, tell us the story about
the thing scratching on the outside.
The thing.
So the turkey story is my most legitimately frightening story. Like, at the moment that it happened, I was deathly afraid of dying. Like, legitimately, I thought I was going to die.
This is it. It's my time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out swinging. So, but as we were talking about the difference between like terror and horror, this experience was my most horrifying.
Terrifying.
Like, it stuck with me.
Okay.
So whichever we decided that is. So, it was 2 a.m. As all good stories start at 2 a.m.
Of course.
And the power goes out. So there I am in my little cabin in the woods with the power out. At which point I go, well, this is no big deal. This happens all the time. I look out the window and the weather is fine. The power almost always goes out when the weather is poor. So to have the weather be good and the power go out set off the first alarm bells. I get on the phone to call the power department, the PUD, and let them know that my power's out, as they tell you to do. The phone line's dead. At which point, I realize someone's trying to get in. Someone's cut my power. Someone's cut my phone line. This is about to get real, and this is about to get real very fast. So I grab a rifle, put on the bayonet, which I still argue is a valid tool, and I wait. And I hear step.
I was going to say, you called Darrell. No.
No, the phone line was dead.
Oh,
there was no calling. This was it. I'm dealing with this thing.
This is it.
I'm dealing with this thing on my own. And I hear stepping up my stairs.
2-footed step?
I can't tell.
Okay.
To be honest. It was very, very soft. And then a pawing at the door. Not distinctly at the door handle, but the door handle jiggled. Just a pawing at the door. So I built up the courage and went upstairs and checked. And there was no cars in my driveway. Which, at this point, I'm like, that's someone trying to break in. They would have a car.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that there was no cars, I'm like, okay, I'm just dealing with an animal here. Hopefully.
New friend.
For the next between 20 and 40 minutes, this pawing sound.
Is there any upstairs window from which you can see your front door?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But this pawing sound happens at the windows, happens at the doors, happens at the back doors, happens on the walls.
Nope.
All in total silence. There's no sound coming from outside other than the pawing.
Did it sound like a paw? Like one concentrated area of pressure? Or were there like multiple, like it could have been fingers or like...
It was, whatever it was a single thing. It wasn't like two paws.
Yeah.
It was a single thing.
Uh-huh.
So you don't think it was a bear?
I don't know. So my knee jerk, and to this day, this is what I believe it is I believe it was a wolf.
Oh, wolf.
I think it was a wolf. Everyone's like, oh, but wolves howl. My wolves don't howl.
No.
My wolves don't make noise of any sort. I've never heard them make any noise.
And how big are the ones up there?
They're pretty big. They stand about 3 foot at the shoulder.
Wow.
These are big wolves.
Wow.
And so whatever it was, did this. I've heard,
and that would explain the single paw at a time as opposed to the bear.
Well, like even a dog, when a dog paws, it paws with 2 paws normally. They normally don't do that at like 4 feet off the ground. See, that's the other thing is my cabin's raised.
Tall.
Huh.
So I've asked locals about that. And I've gotten the joke, oh, it was the Wendigo.
Cool.
But I've also gotten serious people going,
it was the Wendigo.
No, it's a deer.
Huh.
Deer like to rub their antlers against things. And when all the lights were off, it assumed no one was home and just started rubbing its antlers up against things. 'Tis the season for them to molt their antlers.
But you say it was just one.
And did you go and inspect the marks?
There were no marks other than moves in the dust.
Wow.
Yeah. Like the...
And very inconveniently, your cameras were out.
Yeah, because the power was out.
Yeah. So it could have been wolves. It could have been bears. It could have been moose. Could have been deer.
Could have been
the hoo-hoo. Could have been the Wendigo.
Could have been the hoo-hoo.
Legitimately, it's one of the things I try not to think about.
Okay.
Because it's not one of the things that I like to deal with up there.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is I've told this story to, like, the locals, and they're like, next time this sort of thing happens, call, and we'll come with guns. That's what we do.
Wow.
And I'm like, but the phone was dead.
Oh,
Now, it turned out the phone was dead because all the lines were going off. It wasn't cut. It was just dead. And the power was out for a few days. But
And there's no cell service.
No.
Wow.
So that's horrifying, and that could be one of those my encounter with a skinwalker stories.
Yeah.
That you see on X or whatever. But I was living it.
So you need better plans for when the lights go out up there.
Oh, I had power.
You need like a periscope. If the videos aren't gonna work, the cameras aren't gonna work, then you need a periscope.
We've already put the cameras on backup power. They can run for now 8 hours on their own.
Wow.
So this is not going to happen as much again.
And have you ever taken the cameras to look at what kind of large animals come up to the cabin?
Yeah, mostly cows.
Cows.
Yeah, we're in a free range area, so we get
like
cows.
free range Kreeger cast.
Yes.
It could have been a cow.
Could have been a cow, but whatever this was, it was a single thing, and the cows moo. I'm used to the cows mooing.
Moo friends.
But the deer don't make noise.
Yeah.
I tend to believe the deer based on the height and the fact that it was gentle. Doesn't help, by the way, that something tried to cut the screen and get in. That was a different night.
Yay!
And you have had people break in.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I think if you hadn't known that people have attempted to come into your cabin before, then it wouldn't be as unsettling.
Yeah, I would just assume it was an animal, but
Yeah.
people are far more of a risk. Now, the cool thing is I did have the alarm set, and the alarm was still working. And I was actually still texting people.
Yeah.
Because...
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have multiple ways of communicating up there.
Yeah.
But, man.
And you are near, like, a backpacker trail. So, like, there are frequent hikers through the area, I thought.
No.
No?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There's a hiking area that's about 15 miles away. They would have to get very seriously lost to end up where we are.
Okay.
You can pick up the trail about 7 miles away, but then it goes to like 20 miles away.
Okay. So not even regular hikers, anything?
No, and it wasn't hunting season because, again, the deer were shedding their fuzz, so it's not the right time of year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was either Sasquatch or the hoo-hoo.
Yeah. I'm still going with deer.
Okay.
That's what I tell myself.
We're good. We're good with deer.
We're gonna say that. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I am such a. I don't know. That one I would definitely try to explain away. I'd be like, no, like there's either it was an evil person but I think I'd almost be, again, because, you know, if someone comes in, you're prepared for that. You have guns. Like, we can solve this problem.
But a ghost or a
But if
Wendigo?
it's something else that you can't, yeah, like that would freak me out way more.
Well, we've talked about how, you know, the supernatural is almost more comforting. And, you know, where we talked about how people that prepare for a zombie apocalypse, it's much more likely that you're gonna, you know, if you have a societal collapse or whatever, you're gonna be dealing with a bunch of very desperate, intelligent people, and that is much more frightening. A crazy, intelligent person trying to break into your cabin is much scarier than, you know, some cryptid.
Yeah. It depends. Because, like, Joe Schmo trying to rob me.
Yeah.
I would feel more comfortable tangling with him than the Wendigo.
Yeah, because I think there's also the element of guilt.
Well, there's also, like, it's not just robbery. You could have, you know, there could have been someone that's just interested in doing you harm. You know,
Great.
Could be anything up there.
Yeah, I think that, but I think
Plus
that
the people that are willing to move up there. You know, kind of like Patrick.
Yeah. Can't trust us.
Yeah.
Can't trust you.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's way scary. Like, because if you have something like the zombie apocalypse, or even if you have someone who is looking to break in for whatever reason, I can look that person in the eyes and shoot them between the eyes and sleep like a baby. Do you know what I mean? Like zombies.
Yeah.
It's guilt free, and I think that's kind of I think on a disturbing level that's a lot of why people like the idea of a zombie apocalypse is that it's guilt-free murder. Right. When you have, do you know what I mean? Like if you have something that you don't know how to kill it,
you can never be sure that you really did.
Right.
Which is
why I don't have a problem with people and like things that I can
deal with
myself.
Ooh. Yeah.
Because it's guilt-free. Like, I don't feel bad for killing the murderer who's trying to kill me. I don't feel bad for... Do you know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't say it's a matter of feeling bad, but it is a matter of there's closure there.
Yeah.
Versus there's not closure with trying to deal with.
Yeah.
No matter how many shotgun shells you fire at it, that turkey's still coming for your throat.
Oh. Oh my god, that's even a video game. Zombie Turkey Farm.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Zombie turkey.
Does it come from this experience?
Yes.
Did you develop it?
Mm-hmm.
It's preemptively.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, dear listener, thank you for joining us on the Kreeger cast tonight. Until next time, see you out there.
Gobble, gobble,
Gobble,
gobble.
gobble. Knew it.